All right, welcome to the Chapter 2 review. Play along, listen along, use this to your advantage. This is the stuff we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks, and we talked about these things in class. So make sure you follow along, think about what you're seeing, and watch it over and over. So the first question is, what does the information on the graph below tell us? Well, there's a couple of things that you want to make sure you take note of. Um, on the left side, if you just turn your head a little bit, it talks about average temperature, and that's the line that goes across the graph. That tells us the average temperature in any given month in Nome, Alaska. Okay, and then you've got on the right-hand side, it talks about precipitation, average precipitation measured in inches. So the numbers on the right refer to that, and those would be the bar graph on the bottom for each month tells us how much precipitation that they get in Nome, Alaska in any given month. Okay, so when we're talking temperature and we're talking precipitation, your brain should automatically go, oh, that has to do with outside and it has to do with the weather. Okay, so when we look at this, when we've got some choices, the best thing we can come up with is these are what we call climate patterns. Anytime you think about the weather, in terms of a thematic map, you should always think about climate. And this shows us the patterns over a year of temperature and precipitation in Nome, Alaska. Okay, so when we look at one of these, we're looking at climate patterns of any particular place. So then I want you to tell me, what does the term climate mean? Okay, I want you to think about that. Associate it with weather. And when we think about it, climate is a description of a place's weather patterns, which means that it tells us about the weather there over a long period of time. Okay, so climate and weather are two things that definitely go together. So the question here is, how does a farmer make a living? We see people exchanging money here over some fruits and vegetables. And so when you think about how a farmer makes a living, they're the ones that plant the crops, tend to the crops, and then ultimately harvest the crops to be sold to people that are not farmers. Uh, so any job that I have, I use my money, a good portion of it, to feed my family, and I have a farmer to thank for that because he grew all of that food. Okay. So then the question goes to, is using the land for farming an economic activity? So I want you to think about what we just saw on the previous slide. Would we consider farming an economic activity? If the farmer is using the land to grow food and then taking that food and selling it at a market, this particular farmer is most definitely using the land for an economic activity. When we talk about economic activities, we're talking about how people make money and how people spend money around the world, and ultimately how they make a living. Okay, so that's what you want to think about here when we think about how people use the land. In this example, it would be how farmers use the land. So a physical features map shows what? When we look at all these things on this physical features map, what do we call all the things that are labeled on here? If you came up with the term landforms, you're exactly correct. All of the different things on this physical features map are what we call landforms. Okay? And really the ones I want you to take the most note of are the 10 here. Okay, you've got mountain range, canyon, tributary, which is a small river that goes into a larger river, bay, a reef. You've got the plain, an island, strait, coast, and volcano. All of those terms you should be familiar with and be able to label on a physical features map similar to this. So the next thing I want you to do is look at this map carefully and give 4 examples of natural resources found on this map. Okay, so when you look at it, the arrow is pointing to the spot you need to look, because remember, the key unlocks the information that you need in order to be able to truly read a map. So I want you to take a look at that and say, what would be 4 natural resources that you could find on this particular map? So take a look at it. The four that I came up with would be things like coal and iron, uranium, and petroleum, which is just another way of saying oil that's used for things like gasoline. These four things are found naturally in the earth. They are extracted and they are used for human use to power your home, power your car, to make steel, things like that. So, when we're talking natural resources, we're talking about things that naturally occur under the Earth's surface. So remember, look at your key, look at your resources, and think about which ones here we can count. So the next question is, what kind of information does this map of North Africa show us? Okay, and we want to know what does it show us exactly as we're looking at this. And you want to look again at the key, right? The key gives us a lot of information. You look at it, this one's a little bit different. It already kind of says what it is, but that's okay. But we want to remember the key unlocks the information that shows us the topic of a thematic map. Okay, so when you look at this, what is it that it's showing us? You're looking at things like temperate grassland, tropical grassland, broadleaf evergreen forest, desert, things that grow from the ground. What do we call those types of maps? This one would tell us about vegetation zones specifically. Now you got to be familiar with those terms like desert, temperate grassland, tropical grassland, desert scrub, chaparral, broadleaf evergreen forest. Those are the things that grow in these areas, and we want to make sure that we understand that that then refers to vegetation zones, things that grow from the ground in any particular area. Okay, so this map specifically shows us vegetation zones. Then we've got a term here that you need to make sure you know, region. What does region mean? This is an area with one or more features that set it apart from other areas. So get yourself familiar with this term. Regions are found all over the earth. You can have large regions, you can have smaller regions. When you look at the continents, we can show regionally what those continents look like that set it apart from other areas. And another way to think about it would be what features in our area set us apart from other areas. So when you look at where we live, what special features make our area unique that set it apart from other areas? If you said something like, well, there's gigantic lakes surrounding our area and there don't seem to be any other areas like that, you'd be exactly correct. The Great Lakes region would be the things that set us apart from other areas. The Great Lakes are those things that are unique to our area. So we would be the Great Lakes region. So go over this, make sure you know it, study it. These are terms and things that you need to know for the test. You're going to do great, be confident, and watch it again, all right? Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and you'll be good to go. All right, good luck, everybody.